What's up, peeps? Nick Battle, aka NinosCorner, man. First off, guys, if you like what you're listening to, give me a 5-star review, 5-star comment, the likes, the whole nine on all of your streaming platforms. I'm here, Nino's Corner Podcast, man. I just got trademarked, man. So Nino's Corner is a trademark. So it's going to be a big TM by that Nino's Corner. But, man, appreciate you guys for listening. But today, guys, we're going to talk about Texas versus Iowa State. And I'm not going to really get into the analytics of this game, guys, because I think we all know what's going to happen, post this game. I think we understand that we're going to have a new coach next season. And we'll get to that in the second part of this episode on who the coach might be. But Tom Herman pretty much sealed his fate at Texas. You can tell from that Monday press conference that he knows he's done. They asked him plenty of questions. Have you talked to CDC, which is Chris Del Conte, who is the AD for Texas? And he said he's talked to him numerous times or a couple times over the weekend. And in those conversations, they talked about beating Kansas State. So what does that tell you? It doesn't tell you that he got the confidence that he needed, the backing that he needed from Chris Del Conte to basically say, you're going to be our coach next year. Tom Herman knew. He knew that he had to win out, go to a Big 12 championship game, and possibly win the game just to keep his job this year. This team has underperformed. It's underperformed severely over the last, 2 years? And his first year also, but we'll give him credit for the first year. It's a transition year, but that second year, he wins 10 games, albeit it's the 10 games plus the bowl game. So he ends up going, 10-4 that year. He beats Georgia in the game in the Sugar Bowl, which is an amazing win. And I thought the program was set for greater heights. The next year, he ends up going 8-5, which is not what Texas fans signed up for when you have a coach. And 7-5 in the regular season, 8-5 with the bowl game. This year, it looks like Texas is 5-3 now. We're 5-3, so it looks like we had a potential to go 7-3. Which, when you look, it's not that bad. But guess what? 7-3 is going to get him fired here because this was a down year in the Big 12. You have a senior quarterback who's coming back, 4th year starting, in Sam Ehlinger, who should probably be the best quarterback in the conference if the coaching was there, if the players were developed the way that they're supposed to be developed. However, this team has been stagnant. They've been making the same mistakes for 4 years. These are things that, as a fan, if I can call the mistake that's about to happen, there's a problem. If I can call it from my seat, I'm pretty sure the coach on the opposing sideline can call the same play or the same mistake that's about to happen. And we had that happen too many times here at the University of Texas. And I'm a proud graduate, guys, so I feel a little emotional when I talk about this stuff, But in saying that, guys, I will talk a little bit about the analytics. If I'm not mistaken, guys, Iowa State, they had an NCN for their offense, so a Ninos Corner number, for their offense. So NCN offense of 56 or something like that. The NCAA average, guys, is 40. I think Texas had a 44, so both teams were above average. Iowa State was just the better team that day when it came to the offensive side of the ball, especially when it mattered. Okay, the Texas defense didn't play poorly at all, but their NCN defense was just above 30 points, like 31 points. The NCAA average is 45 for a defense side of the ball. Iowa State's, I think, was around 48, 49, somewhere around there. But I don't care about the analytics of this game right now. This game basically sealed the fate for Tom Herman that he won't be back here next year. We saw it up and down on that Monday press conference. That's another reason why this podcast is a little bit late, because I wanted to hear that press conference, guys. I wanted to hear it. I also had family in for the holidays, so I had to be a good host, right? But it was just a horrible weekend to see. The same mistakes have been made throughout this whole season. And let me go ahead and list them for you. Sam was good when he needed to be in the first and second and third quarters. Usually Sam pulls it out in the fourth quarter. He's usually like money in the fourth quarter, but he's just so inconsistent. It's been like this for the last 3 or 4 games. I don't know if he's injured or what, if the play calling is not there, but Sam has to be great for this team to win. He was not great. He was not great, especially in the second half. Cade Brewer, that fake punt that was a pass to Cade Brewer, what were they doing that for? Was it just to give him some shine because it was senior day? I have no idea, but Cade Brewer should not be the starting tight end. Starting tight end should be Jared Wiley, and I think we all know that. Jared Wiley, big, tall, rangy tight end, played quarterback at Temple High School down in Central Texas, comes down to Texas, and they move him to tight end. He needs to be the starting tight end. way more productive, way more efficient and effective when it comes to catching the ball. So I'm going to actually do a segment on the NCN number for the running backs and the wide receivers probably next week. And you guys will be very surprised at who rose to the top. But talking about wide receivers that rise to the top, we have not, as Texas, we have not replaced the production of Devin Duvernay. And I thought that was going to be something that could have been done with pieces, right? And I thought that maybe Jake Smith, maybe Jordan Whittington could step in and not just one person fill the void of Devin Duvernay, because Devin Duvernay primarily had the second or third best receiving season of anybody in this school's illustrious history. Now, what I did think is Jordan Whittington, Jake Smith could fill in that gap. Maybe they both get around 500 yards receiving apiece, 4 or 5 touchdowns apiece, so you got your 1,000 yards there from the slot position. Maybe that happens still, but who knows? But it hasn't been as productive as it should be. What I did like from the previous game was Brennan Eagles. He had a game like probably his best game ever, in a Texas uniform. And I don't understand why Texas did not do this more often with him throughout his whole career. Brennan Eagles had the potential to be, and I'm not kidding, guys. I know people are going to look at me funny when I say this, but he had Roy Williams' capability when it comes to catching the ball. He can make all the spectacular catches, the one-handed catches. If he's covered, just throw it to him. He's going to go get it, but Texas never utilized that. And maybe it might be something with Brennan Eagles. It might be something with the play calling that was being done, at Texas through these 3 years of of his career at Texas. Now, what I do want to talk about is Tom Herman, right? So sad because I wanted to see him do well. He's a Texas ex. I think he got his grad degree from Texas. Nobody wants to see their coach do bad, right? Everybody wants to see their team do well. And if your team's doing well, that means your coach has to do well, right? No matter what you think about the person. But one thing that rubbed me the wrong way with Tom Herman, he hired all his homeboys from Houston to come coach at Texas. Now, nothing against Houston. Different monster coming to Texas. You can't be a coach at Texas. You need to be a CEO. So that means you need to hire the right offensive coordinators, position coaches, the whole nine. There has to be set in stone perfect first day when you get in. That was something that Mac Brown was able to do masterfully between all the hires that he had. And you see these guys go off and get head coaching jobs at different places and other high profile coordinator positions at different places once they left Texas. You had your Manny Diaz's, you had your Will Muschamps, your Greg Davises. You had great coordinators that did great things at Texas. And Mac basically was the CEO of this team because you got to deal with the boosters. You got to deal with all the press conferences. It's a different animal here. And I don't know if Tom really realized what he was stepping into. He had to. He was a grad assistant here underneath Mac Brown. And it looked like Mac Brown gave him the best endorsement ever. He came to the hiring, so he was in the building when Tom accepted the job. And, I thought, honestly, as a Texas fan, I thought we were going to get our coach for the next 20 years. He's a young guy. I thought he was going to coach well. The first season happens, right? We see a bunch of mistakes, but we're thinking this is a very undisciplined team just from the previous tenure. And I love Charlie Strong. I thought he was a great guy. I just didn't think he was a good coach here at Texas. So that happens. First year happens. They go 7-6. They do win a bowl game, something that we haven't won since Mac left. Very happy about that, right? The next thing that happens, next season, we go 10-4, 10-5. Yeah, I'm sorry, 10-4. And I'm like, oh man, this is amazing. We went 10-4, which just sounds so freaking horrible for a Texas fan to say that we went 10-4 and it's amazing. Because when I went to school, a 10-win season was like, oh, we sucked. But man, how times have changed. But we go 10-4. We beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Great win. Pretty good season, just all things considered, especially what happened over the past decade, right? The next season, we go 8-5, and that's with the bowl game. We go 7-5 in the regular season, 8-5 with the bowl game. Beat a ranked Utah team, which was a great win for us. So it's like we're beating great teams in these bowl games because Tom has time to prepare. but the team is still making the same mistakes each year and each year. First of all, Tom Herman couldn't get the offensive coordinator position straight. So we had 3 years with Tim Beck. Not going to get it done. He had his homeboy as the defensive coordinator. Todd Orlando had a great first season, but once the Big 12 finally figured out what he was doing, they ate him apart. Had one of the worst defensive seasons of any defensive coordinator in Texas history his last year. But what Tom Herman essentially did was hire the wrong people at first and was not willing to let them go after the first year. So what did that do, guys? That stunted the progression, the growth, the maturation process of all these players for 3 years. Count them, 3 years. It stunted their growth for 3 years. So if a player signed on to play with Tom Herman his first year, Tom Herman's first year coaching, or a guy who redshirted his first year when Charlie Strong was here and was a redshirt freshman Herman's first year, that means that the guy who signed with Herman, 3 years, 75% of his career has been a career with inadequate coaching, inadequate player progression, not making players better. You had 75% of your career was that. You have basically stunted this guy's growth when it comes to being an NFL prospect. And what does this say about this guys? Because we had guys that should have gotten drafted if they were in a better scheme, if they were coached right, if they were coached and lifted right, and were in the right program to highlight their skill set in the right schemes. We have a bunch of guys that go undrafted that make rosters. Why is that? Because we're not developing players. So we have all this hidden talent at Texas because the players aren't being developed. And that was 75% of a kid's career who signed on with Tom Herman when he first got to Texas. If he signed on the dotted line when Herman was his first year as a coach, 75% of that kid's career has not been developed properly. It's crazy, right? So that's why you got a guy like Malcolm Roach who can go to the Saints and be a starter, undrafted. Went to Texas undrafted, played in the wrong position, right? They had him playing middle linebacker. He's a defensive tackle, guys, or a defensive end. And, he can play all over the line, whether it's the defensive end, defensive tackle. But we had him playing middle linebacker at Maryland, guys. I was there. I was at the game in D.C. at FedEx Field. We had Malcolm Roach playing middle linebacker. Think about that for a minute. We had him all out of place. He goes to the Saints. He's an undrafted free agent for the Saints, and he started some games for the Saints in the regular season. Think about that for a minute. Poona Ford, big Poona Ford, talking about a really good player. His growth was stunted since Charlie was there, and then he had I think his last year was with Herman. But this guy not being developed the way he should have been, but goes in from Pro Football Focus, if not mistaken, during Poona Ford's rookie year. He was an undrafted free agent with Seattle. So I think Pro Football Focus had him as like the #1 rookie defensive lineman for like 3 or 4 weeks, like straight. It's undeveloped talent. Undeveloped talent. You know what I'm saying? Holden Hill wasn't drafted. There's some other issues with that, but still goes on and does great things. Chris Boyd, 6th round pick. He's not a 6th round, 7th round talent. He's starting for the Minnesota Vikings right now at defensive back, at cornerback. Undeveloped talent. And that's been the story of Texas. Little Jordan Humphrey goes for the draft a year earlier than expected, doesn't get drafted, makes a roster. Undeveloped talent. That's what Tom Herman has been doing because of the wrong roster moves initially. Now, he tried to correct things. He tried to do right by Texas. He fires pretty much 70% of his staff, right? 7 out of 10 of his coordinators get fired, and he brings in a Chris Ash on the defense side of the ball, who's been a savior. If Chris Ash wasn't on this team this year and we had Todd Orlando, we would be getting blown out. Hands down. Thank God for Chris Ash. Tim Beck was not the right hire. He brings in Mike Yurcich. He's the offensive coordinator for Ohio State. He was the OC for Oklahoma State prior to that for a few years. I don't even know if he's the right hire. But the defense side of the ball has been great. But he overhauled so much of his offense. And, when you have to start overhauling a majority of your offense, it lets you know that you've done something wrong. But what Tom Herman has done in these 4 years he's been here, which is coming to an end, and I think we all know that, is that he has not developed his players as need be. He's made the wrong hires, and was too stubborn to realize that and make those changes immediately. And what else has Tom Herman done? I didn't like some of his antics in the Missouri game, the Drew Lock thing. That was, come on, man. You're the head coach of Texas. We don't do that. A little class goes a long way. I'm used to Mac. I don't think I would ever see Dabo Swinney doing it on the sidelines. I don't think I would ever see Nick Saban doing it on the sidelines. I don't think I would ever see, an Urban Meyer. Okay, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that on the other end. But I don't think you would see some of these top-tier coaches. Hell, you wouldn't see Jimbo Fisher doing it on the sidelines. But what we did see was Tom Herman mocking a college kid. Mocking a college kid who does his little dance, he does his thing, and you're mocking him during your first year at head coach. I thought that was horrible. A couple of the instances, flipping the, like basically giving the bird to the cameras on the signing day last year. I know it's supposed to be a joke, but hey, when you're the coach, all eyes are on you. When you're a leader, all eyes are on you. You should know that. There's a bunch of things that he just didn't do right. And, as much as I want to see him succeed, because I want to see my team succeed, I want to see Texas succeed, it's time for a parting of ways. But guys, let's go to the other side, and we're going to talk about the potential coaching candidates and who we think might be some good hires. All right, guys, and we're back, and we are going to talk about some potential candidates that could fill Tom Herman's position once he is let go at the end of the season. And it should be coming pretty quick. So I'm thinking, guys, there are 3 individuals that I think we're all kind of thinking could get this job. Now, the number one guy, and I think everybody knows who the number one guy is. It looks like the UT brass is all behind Urban Meyer. Yeah, I think it'd be an amazing hire if you just want to win. Everybody talks about the baggage that comes with Urban Meyer. Look, there's baggage with everybody. I understand. It's college football. It is what it is. We all know the conference that he came from 2 conferences ago. They play by a different set of rules. It is what it is. He had once he left that issue because of his health, goes to Ohio State, leaves after 8 years, wins a championship, so leaves after 8 years. The whole Zach Smith allegations and things about him handling that, and then he leaves because of health again. So he did 6 years at Florida, 8 years at Ohio State, 2 years at Bowling Green, first off, then 2 years at Utah, and then, the 6 years at Florida, 2-year break, and then 8 years at Ohio State. And now he's been on TV, doing the commentating thing on Fox. And he's really good at that. He is really good. He brings a whole nother perspective to the game. And then, I like to see him do his thing. But I would love to see him in Texas gear, coaching Texas next year, please, probably. That would be great. Urban Meyer would be a perfect fit just due to the fact that you have a blue blood program that wants to win, and everywhere Urban Meyer goes, he wins. It doesn't take him long to win championships. I mean, you think about it. At Utah, I think he lost 2 games in 2 years. At Florida, he won 2 championships in 6 years. Ohio State, the first year he gets the team, they go undefeated. They weren't eligible for a bowl, but they go 12-0 his first year there. They won a championship within his first 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, or his first 4 years. That masterful team that he had with Cardell Jones, J.T. Barrett, Braxton Miller, Zeke, the hell of an offensive line they had, and all those defensive studs that they had in those teams. And he won a championship. And so he leaves because of his health issue. If I'm not mistaken, he has like a cyst on his brain. And it's not life-threatening for him to understand, but it makes him have these massive headaches, all right? And, he's an all-in coach. You can tell he's very intense. Just for the simple fact, you can just tell. Urban's like, you can tell he's one of those intense guys. I think he'd be a perfect fit at Texas because, for one thing, he can recruit his butt off. When he's at Ohio State, he stole all the talent from Texas to go to Ohio State. This way, he can come to Texas and not have to worry about stealing talent. All the talent's here. He'll be a rock star down here. He'll do something. It's different than how Mac would recruit. I met Mac Brown a few times. I was a football player's RA in college at Texas, and he's just the nicest guy. He'll give you the sharpest back, and you feel like you're at home when you're talking to Mac. You feel like this guy really cares about you, and he does. You can tell Mac loves his players, and he just made you feel at home. There have been numerous stories that some of my friends who were actually recruited by Mac would tell me about how he handled their recruitment, and they just couldn't say no to him because he was that much of a great guy. A man, a God-fearing man. People loved him. Parents loved him. He made sure mama knew that the baby was taken care of. And that's what Mac did. Urban Meyer's different. He's cut from a different cloth. I think he's going to be likable because he is on TV, but he's a different cloth. He is, when we're talking about a CEO, he delegates some things down, but he has all control. And you're going to see immediate results because he holds players accountable. And that's one thing that I think we've been missing at Texas is players not being held accountable for things. That's why you're seeing the same mistakes happening over the past 7 years between Coach Strong in the first 3 years of that 7-year stand and Tom Herman in the last 4 years. You're seeing the same mistakes, missed tackling, which it's gone down because Chris Ash is on board, but just the dumb mistakes, the play calling on the offensive side of the ball, which Herman isn't an offensive guru. He's a Mensa, right? So we haven't had those same standardized success plays. It's all been a bunch of stuff that you can pretty much telegraph and know what's going to happen. But Urban Meyer would be the guy that can come and clean all it up in a heartbeat. Texas will win it. Texas will be in the playoffs in 2 years. I would pretty much guarantee you that. He's that good of a coach. Texas would win a Big 12 championship in 2 years. I'm pretty sure about that. That's how good of a coach he is. The next names that have been floated, guys, Mark Cristobal from Oregon. Hell of a recruiter, rainmaker in the recruiting, which is what you need at Texas. You got to get the talent there. And he's a good coach. I mean, just look what he's done at Oregon. He's done some great things at Oregon. He has brought that team from, I think they won 2 games a few years ago. And he's been at Oregon for 3 years now. And he has basically had top 5, top 8 classes in recruiting. Per the 24/7, their composite rankings. And I know he's getting like a lot of those guys from his backyard in California, but he's getting those guys from California to come to Oregon to play. That's, I don't care what anybody says, it's still not the easiest thing to get a Southern California kid to come to Oregon to play. Or, to get a kid who is used to that California life to go to Oregon. I think if the guy comes to Texas, if he can get Texas talent to stay here, especially on the offensive line, which he's been recruiting amazingly on the offensive line. That's what Texas needs, offensive linemen. I think he'll be a great fit here. But I think you got him, and then you got a guy like Matt Campbell from Iowa State, who I think is also an amazing coach. He'd be an amazing fit also. But how does he fit in here? I love this statement after the win against Texas. He said, we don't have 5-star players, but we have a 5-star culture. And he said that, and his players echo the same thing. So you know that that's what they're being taught. You want that culture set in, that it is a 5-star culture. And if you can come to a team like Texas and start getting 4- and 5-star talent on the regular, just imagine. But my only fear with those 2 guys is that they are, I would say, proven on the Power 5 side. They've both coached at Power 5 places, and they have done great things. Cristobal's done great things at Oregon. We've seen what he's done over the past 2 or 3 years. Matt Campbell has beat the big dogs in the conference quite often, but he'll lose some games that he's not supposed to lose, like against Louisiana. But he'll beat he'll beat OU. He'll beat Texas. He'll clobber Kansas State, but he'll lose to Louisiana Lafayette or Louisiana Monroe, which one? I think it was Lafayette. But anyways, if you're losing to a directional school, that's not good as a Power 5 coach. So that scares me about him is, can he get his teams up, which we know he can get his teams up for the big games, but can he keep them consistent enough to keep that same energy 24/7? So that's my fear with Matt Campbell. I think we all know, though, the slam dunk, is Urban Meyer. That's what Texas fans want. There have been a lot of numbers floated around. 5 years, $60 million, so $12 million a year over 5 years. I've also seen a figure, 10 years, $100 million. And those are some life-changing numbers, guys. Those are some numbers that you have to think twice if you don't want to come back. But one thing about Urban Meyer that I think we all know that he's going to come back and coach eventually, and I think it is going to be at Texas, guys. Not because I know anything. This is just a hunch for me. Guys who leave the game when they're on top. Guys who leave the game when they're on top always come back. Look at Jordan. Jordan retired after 6 championships. Couldn't stay back. He had to come back and play. He wasn't that good when he came back and played, but he had to come back and play. It's hard to leave the game on top. Very few leave on top and never come back. It's hard. George Foreman left boxing on top. Even though he got beat by Muhammad Ali, he was still one of the most feared guys in boxing. He left, but he came back because it's something in you that says, I know I can still do it. I know I can still do it. Urban knows he can do it, and I think he's licking his chops right now, looking at the Big 12 and saying, I could run through this conference. I can get all this Texas talent. You know, I was still in Texas talent, having J.T. Barry come up there, having J.K. Dobbins, Baron Brown, and Jeff Okuda. I mean, this man had Texas talent all on his roster. And now he can just sit back and just have those guys right there. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. All right, guys, we're out, man. You like what you listen to, man. Appreciate you guys. Do you. Don't be afraid to fail. Outgrow your environment. Understand your brilliance, man. I appreciate everything you're doing. Nick Battles out, baby. NinosCorner out.